Welcome back to Outdoor Guys. Today we're going to do a video on where to hang your tree stand for deer hunting. This topic can be super overwhelming, even if you're not a beginner hunter. Just trying to pick the right tree in the right spot sometimes don't happen as quick as we want it to. So I'm going to outline in this video, some of my tips that I've used and learned over the years to kind of help you guys out and put you in better spots quicker, save you some time and headache, hopefully. So this video is going to apply to every type of tree stand, your hang-ons, your ladders, which I use the most, your climbers, your saddles, any type of tree stand. You kind of got to figure out like if it's going to be a bow hunting stand or a gun hunting stand. Most of mine are set up for bow. So where we want to start is we want to scout, right? And we can use trail cameras to kind of help us with that. But in my opinion, I feel like real time in the tree hunting is the best information we can get. I've set stands before, I thought I was in the right spot and I wasn't, and that's okay. That's the beauty of being able to move any of these tree stands. If you're in a climber, you're a little bit more mobile and things like that. But just observation, guys, if you think you're in a good spot, don't be afraid to get out there and hunt it. A lot of the times, you're going to figure out you might need to move it 100 yards, give or take, based on, what you see and the deer movement. The next thing I want to hop into is your predominant wind. Like where I hunt, it's mostly a northwest wind, so I set my stands based on that. Sometimes you can press the issue because everything's not going to set up perfectly depending on your specific property. I would also recommend setting a couple different stands for, a couple different wind directions. That way you're not totally out of the game and can't hunt at all. We got a bunch to go over, so bear with me. The next thing is going to be your access. And what I mean by that is you don't want to be spooking deer on the way in or out, especially if it's on a food source or something like that. A lot plays into that. Time of year is going to play in the tree stand placement. We're going to hop into that in a second, but back to ground scent. You don't want to be crossing major deer trails where you're expecting, bucks and stuff to travel to and from food and bedding and things like that. So wherever your setup is, I'm trying not to jump all over the place, but this stuff gets me excited. You don't want your tree stand directly on the trail. You want to be back off of it some, and we're going to talk about edges and things like that and cover in a little bit later. But your ground scent is super important because, if a buck's on his way to you, he smells your ground scent. Hopefully your wind is right, but if he smells that, that's going to mess you up right off the bat. He might not even come in. He might pick that up a little further down, but he will notice that. So just be cautious of, how you can access your stand scent-wise, noise-wise, all that stuff. You want to try to set it up the best that you can to get in and out of there unnoticed. All right, let's talk about the terrain. And what I mean by that is just I have 4 stands on a 20-acre piece that I hunt. I have 2 of them on ridges, and the other 2 are back in doe bedding and on the fringes of it, where a funnel is. I have one, and then if I want to really get aggressive, I have one set right back where the does bed, and them 2 are specifically for the rut. I'm going to talk about time of year too, because everything kind of plays into each other. Those 2 stands are set specifically for the rut, trying to catch them bucks, scent checking the doe bedding, and things like that. So, and they also, it gets kind of thick there, so they'll use the edge of that cover to come right back into that doe bedding, and that's where I have my stand. But my other 2 stands are up on ridges. So one is on acorns, so I'll hunt that early season. I'll also hunt it kind of through October when they're still on the acorns. But that spot, is kind of on the edge of the property line, and the way those trails are, there's a lot of intersecting trails. That's another huge tip for you guys. If you see intersecting trails, that is definitely a hot spot. You might want to put your tree stand. So, that spot back there can set up for multiple different times of the year. So if you can find a stand location like that, that's awesome. So there's farms that surround my 20-acre piece that I hunt back there. Like I said, I have 4 ladder stands set up. I did another video on tree stand height. If you guys want to check that out, I will drop that down in the video description below. But back to that spot I was talking about where the acorns are. It's just a spot that a lot of the deer use to go from feeding to bedding right through the middle of the property. I try to leave that spot unpressured and put my stands around, you know, the edges of the property in hot spots. So, you know, I don't want to put too much pressure on them. Depending on what time of year, I might want to get more aggressive. And, you know, sometimes I'll do that as well. You can push wind direction a little bit more than you think, especially in the evenings as things, you know, kind of die down. You know, use thermals up on ridges. I love putting tree stands on ridges. I feel like it helps with everything. Your silhouette, your wind, carries it up over everything. We're gonna hop into silhouette right now and like picking a wider base tree to where it can kind of break up your outline, the deer, so they don't pick you off real quick. You know, that's a big tip. Finding the right tree sometimes, I understand, is not an option. Back to that acorn tree stand I was talking about. It's on a ridge. It's not very high up as you would think it would need to be because of the ridge. It's the best tree that I could find in that area. It kind of is pretty open, but there's a couple trees, and that put me back off of that main travel corridor that them bucks use, you know, for multiple reasons. And I'm about 20 yards off of that, and there's 3 or 4 other trails that intersect. So it's not always going to be perfect, guys. Don't be afraid to be aggressive and, you know, press the issue, because it can pay off for you. So even though that's like not the textbook situation, I still put my stand up there, and, you know, I have to cross some deer trails to get in there. That's just the way it is. You know, I only go in there on specific times and, you know, dates and cold fronts and things like that, depending on temperature and all those things. But a lot plays into it, guys. I'm trying not to ramble. Let's hop into the next thing. So the bucks, guys, especially the mature ones, are going to move differently than the does. So that's another thing. Like, all this kind of boils down to whether you're hunting for just meat or you're hunting for trophy. You know, and like I said before, whether it's going to be a bow stand or a gun stand, because, you know, you kind of set that according to the time of year, like I said before, and all those factors kind of play into it. But the bucks they'll use some of the same trails as the does, depending on what time of year it is and what cover is still available. You know, if it's real cold and the cover is dying, they're probably not going to expose themselves. You can kind of catch them cruising during the rut, and then once that's kind of, you know, past, then in my area, I'm saying, like, the cover is just not there, so they're not going to come into the wide open unless they have a very good reason. All right, so once you figure it out, like, history repeats itself. So, like, you know, once you get them good stand locations, they're good. You know, a big piece of advice and tip that I would give you is not to overhunt them. That's why I was saying, like, if you can place a couple different stands in a couple different locations, you can keep the pressure off of one spot so the deer don't pattern you. So the main things we want to look for is food and water. Like, if you can hunt that, deer gotta eat and drink just like we do. So they are really good tree stand spots as well. If you're hunting a farm or something like that, you probably have plenty of different food choices. If you're back in the timber like me, I don't really have that. So, you know, I try to hunt the acorns and things like that, which, you know, the deer hit hard certain times of the year. So be smart, guys. Like, you know, hunt the right winds, hunt according to where you think the deer are going to come from and where they're going. Sometimes during a rut, that can be anywhere. That's what makes it fun, but it can also give you a really good opportunity if they, you know, make a mistake. All right, so nowadays we have some cool things like hunting apps, and I do use some of them, because sometimes when you look at the wind for the, you know, the future forecast, you're like, your head starts to spin because you got stands in all different directions. So, like, I definitely would recommend, like, trying one of the hunting apps, because you can set your stands on the map and it'll actually show you the wind direction, which I think is really helpful and cool because it switches so much, and it's a tool you can use to double check to make sure. Even the one I use gives you, you know, a percentage, what stand is best to hunt for that wind. You know, you can actually go in and set up what wind you prefer for that stand, and it'll tell you what your best stand is for that day. So if you're a beginner or you just want to kind of simplify it, using the hunting apps can really be helpful. I think I covered everything, guys. This video went a little longer than I wanted it to, but I wanted to try to give you guys as much as I could to help you out. Go ahead and drop a comment down below if you guys have any questions related to, you know, where you put your tree stand or anything like that. Go ahead and ring that notification bell too, so you get all my content as soon as it drops. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Smash that subscribe button down for me. Until the next one, you have officially been outdoors.